Recording in progress. And
All
we're
right.
back.
Yes.
So we left off, we were about to get into the significance of Jubilee in the X-Men comics as well as in the X-Men universe through the cartoon and stuff like that. And I feel like um I literally had to put a pin in it. I was like, we have to chop it up. Jubilee is a Asian American teenager, high school female. She just came into her powers.
Yep.
And when we're meeting her through the X-Men cartoon series, she has an adopted family. So there's
Mm.
all of these different elements of what brings her identity together. And the way her family, her adopted family betrayed her.
Yep. It's it's a tale we've consistently seen. We seen it play out in what was it, X2 with Bobby Drake and coming home to his father, and his
Right?
father has that whole
Right.
what's wrong with you? Like
Right.
it's like what is wrong with you? And lo and behold, people, the X gene normally comes from the father's side. So
Right, because that's Senator.
so
You're
why
right.
so you have these men that's in that universe always looking at their children like they're broken, there's something wrong with you.
Yes.
And how many kids today who are either gay, trans, non-binary, trans or gender fluid, gay, bisexual, lesbian, whatever, and they get that conversation is the same. That
Like what's wrong?
conversation is the same.
And there's nothing wrong. It's
No.
literally, just it was just so wild because I feel like what just exactly what we were talking about how X-Men is so relevant to where we are right now today, and almost like the book bans and the
Man, man.
rolling back abortion rights, women's health rights,
Oh,
um, all of these different things, even like what you said with like the LGBTQ spectrum and how they're taking like it out on the children and saying,
yeah.
oh, the teachers can report children who are trans and all of these different things. And I was just like,
All under the cover of hate and fear.
hate and government, using the government to implement these forms of hate and persecution. And see, and this is like, if Magneto were a real person, he'd be looking at Charles like, what I
Look,
tell you, can't trust them. What did I
I'm
tell
telling
you?
you, Chuck, we done had this talk
We
every
done
time we
had
play
this
chess. We
conversation.
had
What did I tell you? Because, before when it's coming to the adults, Xavier Charles is always like, okay, whatever. But when it's the children, it's like the children are defenseless. They
yeah.
have no, political say. And
Mhm.
so why are you coming after these kids? Why
Yeah.
are you doing all of these things that are impacting the children
These children.
because of your
I,
small-mindedness and your insecurities? And yeah,
the fact that we are seeing uh the Handmaid's Tale,
right.
the X-Men, well, no matter what version of it, that story is the same. The fact that we're seeing it play out,
Yeah.
literally play out, real time. And you have people, I can't remember what senator this was, but he was saying that he was a fan of the X-Men. But I'm like, but you cannot be a fan of the X-Men if you don't understand what that means at its core.
Right.
Because now you're violating women's rights. You're violating history,
Mhm.
literal history. Oh, we don't want our children to know it. Why?
Why?
When it's literally stated that if these cultures do not learn about each other's history, we are doomed to be separate, non-equal, hateful,
Yeah.
divisive, whatever the case may be. The truth needs to be out there. Thank you, Cat Williams, for
Right.
kicking that gate open, because I've called this the year of truth. Things are
Yeah.
getting aired out. Things
Yeah.
are no longer hidden. People are saying and speaking their minds, whether that's in the entertainment world, whether it's things that's playing out. Shout out to Fannie Willis, who's out there like, I
Right.
wish you would. I'm like, yes. Please tell him.
I was
Please tell
watching Fanny
him.
today, and when they asked her, "Well, why do you have money in your house?" I said, "Why not?" I was taught the same thing.
The
It
fact.
was funny because I like there was a time where years ago, my kid's dad found like a shoebox, and he's like, "There's a shoebox that's got $700 in it." I was like, "Yeah." Like that's one shoebox that you found. Like
Like,
you're raised to
don't
like
shout it from the mountaintop. Just you know.
or it won't be there
You're
anymore.
right.
Also my grandparents, my grandmother lived through the Great Depression, like when people were,
Oh,
going to get their money and the banks were like, we ain't got it. We ain't
and
got
what
it in me, ain't got it on me.
and what's happening right now?
Hmm.
The banks are folding. They're Wells
Yeah.
Fargo already getting caught
Yeah.
up in predatory practices and
Once again, Wells Fargo stays like, I don't know why anybody banks with them after all the stuff that they've done. Like
I'm like, y'all still going now? So
literally, like it just, but it's the same.
it's back to saving money and putting it on the mattress. It's literally
It's literally stuffing money in mattresses, hiding it in jars and burying it in the backyard,
like,
wearing,
why does granddad still have that fish fillet box in the freezer? Don't touch it. Don't touch it. It's
yeah,
still good. It said it's deep freezer. Be money
the
sitting in
coffee
there.
cans under the sink. There's lots of places where money was kept.
Yeah. So
So
I think a lot of that stuff that we see now is so
survival
relevant.
mechanisms.
It's survival mechanisms. We're seeing things play out in people that have read these comics. The real ones know.
Yeah,
They're just like, you don't understand. Like I've always said that what we read in comics, what we see in anime, what we see in science fiction is the mirror image playing out just at a grander scale that is more palatable for
honestly,
people
it
to
is.
understand. And they don't when it happens in real time, and you're just like, I can't believe we let it get this far. I can't believe you didn't see it coming.
That on purpose because I've been watching this coming for years.
Hmm.
And you know how people like to be like, oh, crazy people, sometimes they're right and blah, blah, blah. And I would hear my dad say that when I was a kid growing up. And it's like, so look at that. Everybody thought Cat Williams was crazy and coming to find out that man was telling the truth. You just didn't want to hear it because you didn't want to believe it.
You didn't like the source.
You didn't like the source, you didn't like what he's saying. And so we're getting to this point where a lot of the stuff, it's like you would think that's crazy, but now it's real, it's verifiable, it's like and history repeats itself. And
Right.
so if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. And we're in this space where we've learned, but we're still repeating it because there's like they've worked so hard to hide it and repress it. And now we're in this space where there are a lot of people who don't know any better. They don't know our history. They don't know this country's history. They don't know the things that have been done. And so you have, these stories, these that we like, the fantasy and fiction, but it was also a medium to kind of warn us of if you don't watch out, it could end up like this. This is what
Yeah.
happens when things go too far. Even Black Mirror on Netflix. Literally, when they took a break, they were like, when stuff started getting hectic, and we were like, we need some more Black Mirror. And they're like, stuff is a little bit crazy right now. And we
Like,
don't
we
think
might have been
y'all
writing
need,
it too close to the truth. We might want to take a
right.
step
We
back.
don't think y'all need this perspective at this time. Like, we're gonna let y'all have a break.
Y'all need to breathe for a little bit.
Y'all need to breathe. Shit's getting real.
And then Apple Pro Vision comes out, and I literally just had a talk last night with one of my kids, and I was saying, I'm like, it's because he was watching the guy wear an Apple Pro Vision for 100 hours. That was
Right.
the bet, and I'm laughing. He said, "What?" I said, "Because I said it's Wally." Like, which he had never seen, and I said, "You need to watch it." I was like, "It's literally Wally playing out." He's like, "Well, what is Wally?" And I'm like,
Yes.
imagine the humans of Earth, trash Earth, nothing left. What do they do? Get on these space arcs and go in space.
Go
Problem
somewhere
is,
else.
they out in space and they're so lazy and so stuck in their technology that they just sit on roll arounds with HUD displays in front of them and get fat.
Yeah.
Like I told him, I was like, the captain fat, the staff is fat, the workers are fat,
Everybody. They had to
everybody.
learn how to walk because they're just
Like there's nothing's working. Like, meanwhile, I'm,
like
I'm like, it's literally playing out. And that's not being fat phobic, because it's like we're seeing things play out in a way that is like, It's actually happening.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting on someone to say, I think we learned how to make unstable molecules and put them in uniforms. And I'm like, Fantastic Four, it works. I was like, I need a
Right?
uniform and I need it now.
You know what? They
So
probably already have it because there's a lot of things I've learned from being an IT professional, and a lot of times before it gets to the public, we've already had it and tested it for 10 years, and then
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
we wait for the human mind to be ready to grasp this
Hmm.
technology before we present it to them. So now we've got, because especially to love anime, isekais are my favorite genre of anime. And then now when they came out with I was like, I want one so bad. And my kids are like, Mom, really? You really want
Uh,
to do that?
yeah,
I
and
was
I mean,
like,
there's certain thing like even with the contact lenses that act like your almost like your phone. And I'm like, it's
yeah,
cool. Don't get me wrong, cool
but
concept. It's a cool concept,
concept.
but
I'm not allowing you to put technology in my head.
I'm like, I'm like, ooh, like, hey, we got this implant. And I'm like, stop right there. Unless it's extremist armor, I don't want it. And
Right?
so it is when I
Because I
see
don't
these
need
things.
anyone to hack it. And now I no longer have control over myself. And yeah,
Yeah,
because,
we seen it happen with what was the movie Hardware, and we seen it happen with Doc Ock. So we know
right?
like this might go left. I'm not sure about this.
And then, Black Mirror, lots of isekai show how far technology can go, and how much, if we get too comfortable with the convenience of, oh yeah, it's going to be great. And then now what do you trade for that convenience? What
Yeah,
you trade some of your autonomy each and every time,
that's why
every
that's
time.
why when I look at stuff like when I read stuff and look at stuff like Black Panther, it was
Yeah.
like here you have a perfect mix of technology, and I don't want to say old world, but the old way. and
Uh-huh.
it's and it's been enveloped. Like nothing's overdone, nothing's underdone. You still have your traditional methods, but you still
Right.
have technology to do certain things that helps life be easier. Vibranium, they have no diseases
Yeah.
because they've managed to synthesize vibranium to cure cancer, cure certain illnesses. They have ways to filter your water,
Life better. But remember what they sacrificed too. They had to completely isolate themselves from the rest of the world out of fear that if we share this with anybody, and then you see what happened, because okay, yes,
Look at Africa now. It's what they've dealt with over the
yeah,
over
they've been
the,
dealing
the
with it
history.
because, and literally you can pinpoint where specifically, because the things that we get in our phones, like, they're mining that out of Africa,
Yeah,
like there's so many resources. Africa is so resource rich, like densely rich of
yeah.
everything that we need: diamonds, gold, rubber, oil. That's part of the reason why they're in that region. The Horn of
Like we
Africa
need to
is,
take it, and it was like, no, why do you need to take it? Like, do it.
take it. Exactly. And then
Yeah,
why
you
don't the
gotta
people get to benefit from that? If like
right.
we've been sold the idea that Africa is so poor. Africa is very, very, very
Oh
rich.
no,
It's
I've
just,
I've seen I've seen I know a couple people who have stayed over there for a couple of years,
yeah.
and they're just like, oh no, it's certain areas. It's like here.
But the poverty is imposed
Yeah,
because the resources are being taken out of that country, and the people are not getting to be able to control it economically and be able
mm,
to benefit from the richness that is coming from their own land. If
yeah.
Africa were, then it would be just like Black Panther. If
Yeah.
the people
They
were
they would
able
they would
to,
they would have to shut they'd be like, you know what? We somehow need to create a system where we got to shut everybody off, wait for like 10 years, and then
or not
like,
even that, it's just like the balance of power in the world, because
yeah,
we're very, very Western centralized, Western idealized world. When Western, I mean by like European and
yeah,
American
yep,
influence,
yep.
because they control the resources. They went everywhere. They took the resources from all over the world, and capital, implied
Capitalism.
capitalism, and used it. And none of the people got to use those things and benefit. And so when we look at the microcosm of, Wakanda, this is a group of people who, for hundreds of years, were able to self isolate focus on themselves, focus on their culture, their traditions, and their resources, and use their resources to benefit them to where they're a very wealthy country.
Yeah.
Like you said, they've eradicated all illnesses.
And it's like, and
Everybody
that's why
lives.
T'Challa was like, even his father in the comics was just
Yeah,
like, why would I send you something when you're not, when the people aren't going to benefit from the pharmaceutical part of it? Why
yeah,
would I send you that? Why would I give you the cure to cancer if you're not going to actually use that cure?
yeah. You're
So
not,
even so,
because
when you
they're going to
see,
just try to synthesize it for profit,
yeah,
and water it down so poorly. Because look
that you
at the
got to
things
keep
that
coming
we have
back.
now. Exactly, that you got to keep coming back, and because they don't want anyone to be healthy. But anyway, that's a whole other
Yeah, yeah.
conversation outside of this.
Yeah. Like I could
Let's
wax
stay in the
poetic.
fantasy world.
I could wax poetic about this stuff because that's
Right.
happened before with a lot of people. They was like, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, "Because it's true."
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, what you see with X-Men, what you see with Black Panther, what you see with Captain
Yeah.
America, it's true. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate. It's true. What
Mhm.
what Peter Parker goes through on a daily basis
Yes.
is true.
Yeah.
Keeping a job, paying the mortgage or paying your rent, knowing none of these numbers add up. The man had a company, for Christ's sake, and it crumbled,
Yeah.
and not due to his, I don't want to say negligence, but not just having the right people,
Right.
to kind of help him run it.
Right.
So see, when I see stuff like that, and when I when I do Blurred's Eye View and talk about the education part of everything,
Hmm.
this is why I like to bring in Black creatives,
Yes.
because one, there are a ton of Black creatives who
Yes.
have tons of stories, different, mind you,
Yeah.
to talk about.
Hmm.
When you have people like Concrete Comics, when you have Wingless Comics, when you have people that's out there, Jason Michael Primrose, when he does 2050Z, when you have these people out there and they're telling a different narrative
Hmm.
from our point of view, that number one, you're seeing yourself, whether you're a man, woman, child, you're seeing yourself.
Hmm.
Two, it's a totally fresh outtake of or a story outlook on Afrofuturism,
Yes.
superheroes, whatever the case may be. It's a different story.
Hmm.
And we need those different stories because you know what? Those are the stories that are most interesting,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
You're
And then
right.
on top of that, they work so hard. People like Midnight Comics and these guys bust their butt to
Mhm.
bring a fresh story and
And
fresh
we need
characters.
that. We
Yeah.
need that because I got to a point where like I'm a cinephile. I love movies, I love film, I love analyzing them in themes and just the art of storytelling.
Yeah.
And we got to a point where we were just recycling, wash, rinse, repeat. Like even with the
Mm,
Transformers, when they first created the live action or reintroduced the live action series or the movies, with that franchise, I was so excited. And then they just kept recycling it over. And I was like, wait a minute, there's a whole world. And like now that we're getting to the part where we're at now, and I'm just like, okay, yay. But it took
how many movies? It
right,
took it took how many movies?
I'm like
Because you
at least,
started to stumble after a while. You're just like,
you
wait, what are you
know,
doing?
just
Even I
I'm
think I
sorry to
can't
cut you
remember
off.
which one it was. I think was it last night,
Mhm.
Transformers last night, and like the Decepticons were now transforming using nanotechnology and not just transforming into one vehicle, but different ones. And I said, man, that's cheating. Come
Yeah.
on.
Like, where they
And
do
you
that
you
at? They
you
got to
you
do
lose
one
the
thing.
element. Yeah, I'm like
Yeah.
you get to pick one vehicle or
And
one
that's it.
weapon, and that's it. This is
That's
this is
it.
this is the ground level. You cannot just I'm going to turn into this. I'm like that sounds like when you're a kid playing, and I'm like, oh, I didn't die. I had a bulletproof vest on, and you're just
Right?
making up the story as you're
Plot
going on. I'm
armor.
like,
And
I'm
it's
like that's
just like,
cheating.
no, that's when you can tell again, like what we started about with the beginning of the podcast. Like they are not aware of the source material, so they're just free balling it. And it's like that's not how things work in this universe.
Right.
But okay. Um, it's really good. This is the importance, because I wanted to talk about that with you too, and especially with Blurred's Eye View and you bringing on the different types of guests that you bring on and holding space for the different artists, comic book creators, different talents in our community. We are now at a point where different types of stories are needed, different perspectives, because we've seen the same things over and over again. Hollywood apparently cannot do their one trick pony. They get something and they hold on to it, and they just, when we did this, and they think an ingenious thing is now we're going to make the characters black, and it's like, I mean,
Mm,
you could
yeah,
like
that's what me and my crew, because the way we look at ourselves, we look at ourselves as a crew on a spaceship,
uh-huh,
very much similar to a pirate ship, but we
uh-huh,
we look at ourselves as a crew on a spaceship. And what I tell them, I say, don't say inclusion,
mhm.
say representation,
Representation, yeah,
because inclusion means we're trying to come into your world. We just want to be there. And I'm like, no, we need to see ourselves.
yes.
We need to be able to see ourselves and be proud, because it's I don't want you to take a character and make it black. You don't have to do that.
Do not just be like black Superman, black this,
Yeah.
black that,
And
because
even with
that's,
even with that, like I
yeah,
remember that dropping, and that's how the media plays it out. And it was like, oh, black Superman. And I'm like, I know for a fact there are three Supermen on different Earths that are black.
right.
However, the way they're addressing it with the general public, they don't know that.
Because, and the way some people tried to approach Miles, they were like, "Oh, it's Black Spider-Man," and we are like, "Wait a minute."
Right.
Miles is Miles Morales. He's
Yeah.
not a Peter Parker. There are many Peter Parkers, but Miles has a whole different dynamic, and the other Miles has a different dynamic than the Peter Parker. So it's not, this is a
Yeah.
Black
It's just
Spider-Man.
they're just sharing the code name.
They're
That's
just
it.
sharing that they're a spider person.
Yeah.
They happen to be,
And they
but
work together
right,
on many occasions
on
a
many
day.
occasions, because
So
Hobie, in that case, then Hobie is a black Spider-Man. He's Spider
right.
Punk, but he, like, you know what I mean? But Miles and Peter Parker have, where we enjoy is the intersection of what they are, because like I said, like we talked about before, Peter Parker as Spider-Man and Peter Parker himself resonates with our community because of the trials and tribulations he goes through,
Right.
and we can identify with that. And then you have Miles, who, as everybody's starting to get exposed to his universe and his experiences, and it just connects with us even more, because that's nephew right there.
Yeah.
Like, protect
Right.
him at all costs. Like,
Yeah.
and
Seeing
even
him
how,
seeing him go to Horizon Academy and every, like, this kid is
yes,
smart. He has his
smart.
parents. He's representing not just one, he's representing two cultures, which is
Yes,
beautiful, because
yes,
we know that about New York. So
yes,
he's representing two cultures from a two-parent household. It's so the trauma he deals with is the uncle, of course, because that you need
right.
that kind of narrative.
Because that is something that some Black households experience, is having a family member that has had a run-in with the law,
Right.
criminal background. And so that is, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, because we can't avoid that. Everybody's not the Cosbys,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we need to see that and see how he interacts with that. And I love when he goes into the other universe, and when he's interacting with his uncle, and he kind of has that, like, this don't feel right. Like,
Yeah.
what you
He's like,
what
why are
you
you
up
giving my
to?
mama money? Where's
Yeah.
my daddy? Wait a
Where's
minute.
my daddy?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you taking care of my mom. And like even the different hairdo, how
Yeah.
how he moves, they kind of like treat him like, you
Even
move like
the
a
way
cornball. You
the
don't
way
move
he
like
speaks. Yeah,
yeah,
the
the
way
way
he
he
speaks.
speaks. The uncle
So
peeped it. He was like, this ain't Miles.
yeah,
This ain't
right.
my
He was just
Miles.
like, opposed to the one who's been living with the mom without his father, so he has more of the Latino culture.
He
You
has
hear
more of
it
the
when he's
Latino culture, but he also is a little bit more hood. He's a little
yeah,
bit more
because he didn't have that. He
harder.
didn't have
He
that.
didn't have that soft life.
Yeah. And I'm waiting to see how that plays out, because I don't think he's like the bad one.
I don't think he's bad.
I
He's
think
just
he's
had a
doing
different
something.
experience.
Yeah, I think he's still the good guy. It's just he's more anti-hero. Like, I
And
got to do some
yes,
stuff.
he's anti-hero. And also, I love that we see that where our Miles has not had really the opportunity to explore his technological genius, because we know that he's a genius. And we know,
Yeah.
because what did he tell the counselor? He was like, I want to go to this particular school because I want to study this type of technology, but he hasn't had
Mm-hmm.
that. His mom is like squeezing him to
She's
death.
trying to
Like,
hold,
I
hold.
just
Like, I don't want to
versus the
let my
other
baby go.
Miles, he built, he's built, he made that Prowler costume. He didn't
Yeah,
stumble across that technology. He did it. Just
yeah.
like what you see the connection with Hobie. Because Hobie, while he's in there, he's just, ganking little pieces here
Yo,
and he's
tell
sure,
you, we was all looking at Miles, but I'm tell you, the culture was looking at Hobie like
right?
that guy.
Everybody was looking at Hobie and at Spider Bite because Hobie was like, "You sure you want to do this? We don't even know what these people do. You sure?" Then
I'm like,
when he was like, "Well, they didn't give me one of these watches," he was like, "Why don't you build your own?" When he
yeah.
said that my spidey senses, I was like, "Wait a minute,
I'm like, Hobie,
wait a minute,
I
Hobie.
like you.
Well, I like you. I like this
Anti-establishment,
anti-establishment."
and
Yeah,
I like the vibe, brother. All right. I'm like,
yes.
I mean,
Hobie's a
he spoke.
vibe.
He was
Hobie
just
is a
like,
vibe.
yeah, he was. I'm like, oh no, he wasn't causing the chaos. He was asking the right questions.
He was asking the right questions
That's
and
why,
asking Miles to ask those same questions too.
yeah, because he's just like, oh, good, it's another brother. Let me get in
Let me
and
go ahead
let
and
me
tell him,
let me plant
hey,
these seeds now, so
right.
he know, because you might be excited to see all of this. However, why is
They
all of
ain't
this
good. They're
here?
not the good guys, and this is not the get along gang. And once
Right?
he left the nuggets that he needed to leave, and I honestly feel like Hobie was just waiting for Miles to get there
Yeah, he
so
was
that he
just
could, hey, let me
because
put you on game,
he shows up at the end with Gwen. He was just like,
right?
I'm going
He
after
pulled
my little
up,
brother. I'm going after my little
right?
brother.
And then
So
after he said what he said, he was like, "I'm out."
yeah,
I didn't want
even
to be here no way.
even Issa Rae's Spider Woman. You
Yes,
know, and we love Issa,
we
we
love
love her,
her.
but there's something going on where I think she's gonna flip. She's gonna flip that coin. She'll be like, mm-mm,
Her
I'm
character.
out. I gotta back this out. I gotta back up for a second.
Right.
This ain't just
Right.
because I'm pregnant. I gotta back up because yeah,
Because this isn't benefiting my people. Because even
right.
Spider Bite, she kind of looked and she was thinking, and then she was like, "Yeah," because they were like, "Don't let him go, don't let him escape," and
It's
she's like,
We knew what that was. The black
"Yes,
community knew what that was.
right."
It's just like
She
when you see
looked at
that other
him and
sister,
she
that other
looked at
brother.
him. She was like, "I gotta help my little brother. Bye."
It's like I might be I'm not sending I might be not sending him to the right place, but I'm getting him the hell out of here.
I'm getting him out
So
of here. I love that because here's the thing. We understand the machine. The machine they said is the send you home machine or whatever. It
mhm,
sent him to the origin of his spider.
yeah,
It didn't send him home. It sent him, and his spider, remember, wasn't even
because
supposed to be in his universe.
exactly,
So
exactly.
now we know. And I was just like, that's the she didn't make a mistake. It was
That's
a
just what it happened.
misunderstanding because his
Yeah,
spider came from that universe.
yeah.
So
And
yeah.
this is what it goes back to, like you said, the art of storytelling.
Yes.
This is why I tell my wife all the time. I say I like to go see a movie more than once,
Yes, same.
because that first initial viewing is the excitement.
Yes.
That second viewing, now you're picking up all your details.
Yes.
And when you pick up
Details,
the
Easter
details,
eggs, themes, meaning.
yeah. And then sometimes on that third run, you're just like, now I'm taking this all in, and really, and it really takes people like with the first Spider-Verse movie.
Mhm.
They were talking about it, and they were talking about certain things, and even now, that What's Up Danger track, when he comes into his own.
Mhm.
That whole scene hits on a
Yeah.
totally different level. And if you remember, when he first got his powers and he was trying to web swing, he was
Yes.
falling and everything else. But then they inverted it.
Yes.
They inverted it, his falling, as him rising to the,
Yes.
and it was like, and I remember the story writers talking about that and saying, yeah, this is what this means. Even with Black Panther, when and I'm so glad that I learned my culture early in age, because the scene where uh Nakia, T'Challa, and Okoye walk into the casino, and
Yes.
I see the red, black, and green, like it's prominent. Like,
Yes.
and my wife like, what? And I said, red, black, and green. They're
Right.
wearing the
The
colors of the
Pan-African
flag. Yeah.
colors.
And then I'm like, and then you see Claude, and I'm like, colonialism. I'm like, And me and my cousin stays in Atlanta, and she called me. She was like, "See," and I'm like, "Yes, I seen it, I seen it." And sure enough, Ryan Coogler, a couple weeks later, he does an interview and he mentions that, and we were like, we were there.
Even when she pulled that wig off, I was like, it's
Yeah,
a wrap. She
I
said, I
am
gotta
not
get to
adopting. I
business.
am not adopting this anymore. Like we got to
Yes.
handle business. I
Yes.
love like when you mentioned the art of storytelling. It's so important. It's so necessary.
Yes.
You can't keep telling the same cookie cutter
Yes.
stories on everything. I think I seen a clip
Hmm.
from Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You. I actually listened to that entire episode, but James Gunn was on this episode,
Oh, good.
and James Gunn was talking about his run over at Marvel, but he didn't say Marvel per se. He was just saying people are losing the art.
Yeah.
They're cut copy paste, and he said it stopped becoming, oh, we'll just make a sequel because it's popular. No, there's a reason why Guardians Volume 1 through 3 were the successes they
Yeah.
were. Because
Yes.
one, it wasn't the same story. Two, there was a story narrative being told. And by the time you got to that third one,
Yeah.
yikes.
Yeah.
Like you're sitting in the theater like tissues. You're like, hold on, wait a minute.
Yes.
I wasn't ready for this.
Yes.
So
It was emotional.
yeah, I'm like, I wasn't, even the ending, bittersweet as it was just
Right.
like,
Because you're like, they're gonna go all okay. Like that was
like
such a
everybody,
meaningful, yeah.
every character, perfect example. Nebula and Drax.
Yeah.
And Drax is like, he's, Manus is leaving. So like him and Manus, I love the Christmas
I
special was
love their
hilarious
dynamic.
watching.
Yeah.
So when she says no, I have to leave to be my own person.
Yes.
And so that breaks him. And Drax,
Yeah.
who's more father than anything,
Yeah, he is.
he's just like, well, I'm leaving too. And then Nebula says no. And he's like, what? He's like, because I need someone who's like a father. I need someone
She
here.
did, yeah.
And I'm like,
A
hang
positive
on.
father.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it
Because
connects
that's
the
what he missed. That's what he missed.
that is what he missed. I love that you pointed that out because I peeped that too. And that's good storytelling when you're closing these arcs. And as a writer myself, it's like the good storytelling is when you see the characters evolve, you see them have their arc, and you see them like they have to come full circle. He
Hmm.
lost his family. He lost his children. And then here he is having these new children that
Yeah,
need someone to raise him and raise them with love and compassion and kindness, curiosity, all of those things, a positive father figure, as opposed to Nebula and Gamora grew up with what you could totally say is the negative positive role model, where
yeah,
he's like pushing them. Yeah, he pushed them to be their best self, but at the loss of them losing themselves and losing for Nebula parts of herself, you
literally.
know, like, so
Finally being a sister, like seeing these
yeah,
characters develop in ways that you didn't expect. Like when Thanos was gone, people were like, well, what's he going to do? What's Drax going to do? People that really paid attention, because
yeah,
that was his goal.
that
I'm going
was,
after the guy that killed my family.
yeah,
Well, the guy that killed it, at first he thought it was Ronan, which it
yeah,
was, but
yeah,
he was given a mission by
from
Thanos. So he was
Thanos.
just like, no, I'm going after Thanos now because he's the one behind it. Well, now Thanos is gone. So now what do you do?
Now your new mission is to be the father to
Right? It
these
was like
children,
you went for full circle. Nebula, who had this jealous behavior towards Gamora, and then losing Gamora and realizing I did love her as a sister. I
Yeah,
hate that she died. I'm trying to deal with that, and then seeing a new version of her
yeah,
in this new light. Even that them walking past each other at the end, and they're like, and I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, see,
with
the
respect
rivalry
for each
is,
other.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And then seeing Rocket, like that whole thing with
yeah,
Rocket, realizing this was his story the whole time. And when he says,
yes,
we're going after all these animals, and he was like, I'm done running, because
yes,
that's what he's been doing the entire time. He's been a thief. He's just been snatching stuff and moving on to the next mission. And he's like, I'm tired of running. I'm tired of running. Peter, I'm tired of running. I need to go home. Drax, I'm finally a father. Mantis, I finally get to find myself and help someone
yes,
else instead of doing something for everybody else. I can do something for myself now. these characters had such a growth, and it made the difference. So when James Gunn was talking about the copy cut paste method, he's right. It's not superhero fatigue.
Mhm.
It's just you lost the method of telling the story.
Yes.
Me and the crew over at Blurred's Eye,
Mhm.
we talk about Secret Invasion,
Mhm.
and we say they dropped the ball.
Yeah.
They dropped the ball. I said I don't have a problem with Nick having, when you look back, you say, okay, Nick Fury, he came back from being dusted. He doesn't know who to trust. I see why when he has that meeting with Rhodey and then he comes out and sits down. At first, you're thinking it's an old man that's tired. No, it's a man who realizes he can't trust anyone.
Yes.
And then you find out he's married. Oh, another layer, you know.
Mm.
But where they dropped the ball, in my opinion, is like you took away his second in command and there was no payoff.
Mhm.
And then you took Talos away and there was no payoff. And it was like you took two people away from him that were working with him very closely with no payoff.
Right, because
Like
his
we're
story,
waiting
it's
for,
like where does he develop from that? What does he gain from that? You have to gain something from the loss. Like
yeah,
whether it's some insight, whether he
something.
learns something more, he gains another ally, something, and they're
Yeah.
like, I
You
just
took both of his major allies. Like you took
yeah,
Maria Hill and we were just like, that's a scroll or it's an LMD. And we didn't get the payoff. Like where
right.
was all you got was, I'll get the people who did this. But there was no true payoff. And then Talos, he's gone. And you're like, where's the payoff? And you miss the payoff. So and then we find out like there's showrunner issues that they did on a lot of the shows that they didn't have showrunners. And then some of them never read the stories.
That part. And that
It
that
was
that brings us full circle because it's just like, how can you approach something like this that is a very involved series where these people exist in a very fully functioning universe with all of these different spider webs and ways that these things are connected and ways that there's to approach telling his particular story at this point, and
right.
you're not even making the connection so that people can stay connected to the material to be able to say, okay, well, this is where we're going. Where are we even going with this story? Why are you
Yeah.
doing this? Are
I
you just
mean,
like, it's feeling like a cash grab?
yeah, I'm glad you said that. I'm not one to trash films
Mhm.
unless I go see it and I'm like, what the heck is this? I'm looking at you, Flash. Um, if it wasn't for Michael Keaton and Supergirl, I swear to God. Uh, but then I see movies like, and I'm probably going to see this over the weekend, but it's Madam Web. And the
Okay,
only
yeah.
question I have is, I'm not going to trash the movie, but I need to know, why are we telling that story? Like,
Because and a lot of people are asking that. They're saying they like the list of credits,
mm,
they're being very, very closed mouth about the like who's involved in it, what's the story. The trailers are not even, at least give us something to go on other than it's Marvel and you just think because we're Marvel fans, we're just gonna jump out there and go see it. I mean,
yeah.
generally we do, but still at the same
But like
time.
you're just like, like I had to explain to my wife. She was like, "Well, what's the problem?" I said, "Let me think of a movie we seen together." I said, "Okay, The Matrix."
Oh,
And I said, "You know who Neo is?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "You know who Morpheus is?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Trinity and Agent Smith." She says, "Yeah." I said, "What if the studio said, let's do a spinoff about Tank?" And the first thing she said is, "Who is Tank?" And I said, "Exactly."
yeah, because I know who Tank is, but why would we do that? Exactly. And that's who is Madam Web. It's gonna give us like it's gonna log us out again. So I wanted to say that before we get like, if you would come back again and like
Definitely.
we'll do
Yes.
a to be continued. And like once I get this all edited and chopped together, and then at the end part, it'll just be like to be continued dot dot dot.
Hmm.
Because I like we can definitely do another episode soon so that we
Yeah.
can talk about this Madam Web, but we'll separate it in how we post it
Yeah.
because like I enjoyed talking to you. Like
I I really like talking about the parallels and what comics and
yeah,
anime and all this stuff means, because people, they see the fantastic part, but they don't see the reality part. And I
yeah,
love just like melding the two because it's there.
yes.